The Kingdom Business Society Podcast.
Kingdom BS.
With Steve Holmstrom. Talking God, wealth creation, business, faith, money, and saving the world.
Kris Vallotton, welcome to Kingdom BS. How are you doing?
I'm ready for the BS, that's for sure. Yeah,
Thanks for joining me.
Met in Canada, what was that, maybe 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah, I think it was about 4 months ago.
Yeah.
You came, and awesome business leaders gathering there. And
we're like long-lost brothers.
well, I like to think that. I didn't know you felt that way, but that's great.
I did, for sure.
Yeah, no, it was so great. Just got to meet you at the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse downstairs. Did a little
fun.
Q&A. That was fun.
Yeah, a bunch of business guys.
Yeah.
And gals.
Yeah. Well, I've been looking forward to this one because Kingdom Business Society, most of my guests I try to aim at least 80%, are people who take God outside of the local church. So basically not too many preachers. There's 1 in 5 might be a preacher, but I'm trying to do business people. I got lots of business people. I've done a scientist now. I've had a plumber. I had a politician, but basically people
But never had a false prophet on yet.
Never yet. Yeah.
That's be your first time.
Yeah. This is fun because you're both, and you've really had your feet in both worlds. You've been ministry and in business. And most everyone who would be listening to this podcast, they would know you as prophet. They would know you as the guy who built you guys have built one of the biggest church movements in the world. The world loves Bethel. But not everybody knows. In your world they would, but not everyone in my world would know how entrenched you've been over the years in business. And so I really thought it would be fun to have you in. And I had a kind of a cool intro prepared, and then I got a text this morning. I want to read this because I got a text this morning from a guy who I've been walking with. He's a spiritual son, and he just his name's Doug, and he's just said, Steve, hey, when you get back, hey, we just wanted to pray about something, and he was actually asking me a question about prayer. I want to read this to you because it just blessed me. He said, he wanted me to teach him a little bit on prayer. And I said, well, you can practice. Pray for me. I'm doing a podcast with Kris Vallotton in 3 hours. And he wrote back. He's like, oh, wow, that's amazing, man. He said, I'm so excited for you. He said, that guy is the main reason I had faith to overcome during the hell years of my nervous breakdown.
Wow.
And I said, really? And I didn't know that. And I said, tell me a little bit longer version of that. And he just wrote back. He said, 10 years ago, I had a full nervous breakdown. Saying it was bad is an understatement. It took 3 weeks just to be able to leave my basement to go see the doctor. I was terrified. The report at the doctor's was, I'm sorry, but this is your life now. I was told that to get diagnosed with PTSD, which would allow me to collect disability. But I refused because I know the name above all names. I thought I was losing my mind and going crazy. I begged God to not let my kids see their dad in an insane asylum. I wanted to die. Many times it was crushing. I didn't see any hope. I was alone in this battle. And then one day I heard that Kris Vallotton had experienced something similar. And so I started looking, and when I heard his story, I broke down and wept. And it still makes me cry thinking about that moment because hope entered the situation. I read that he dealt with it for 3 years. And at this point, I was only 6 months in, and I said, Lord, there's no way I can do this for 3 years. Keep in mind that the only way I could even sleep was to take pills. Even then, I would be shaking and in constant terror all the time. 3 years was just a warm-up. I'm now at year 10, mentally and spiritually, I am free. Physically, the residual effects are getting less and less daily as well. I believe 100% healing is close. But hearing his testimony is the thing that gave me hope. It was the light at the end of the tunnel. It was the only way I could listen. The only thing I could listen to was messages from Chris at Bethel and listen to their worship album, Have It All. It was like David playing for Saul. It's the only time I had peace. And the only way I could sleep was to take pills and listen to Bethel. So
Wow.
his sermons helped me sleep. He said, I'm crying right now. Even if he doesn't hear this, I have so much honor for that man.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And this is a guy who's he's a business guy. He's done really well. He's prospering in business. But I didn't know that you were such a big part of his story. But I know many people. There's something about your vulnerability, about your story that just gives people hope. And so I was really excited to have you on and
Thank you.
do a deep dive.
And you are in Reading. They may not know that. You're
I'm in Reading.
right
Yes,
now.
I'm in Reading. Yeah.
What are you doing here?
So I turned 50. My wife planned a surprise birthday for me a couple of weeks ago and gave me a brand new truck, which was really nice.
Wow.
A brand new 2026 GMC diesel, the ultimate edition, like the leather. This is
Wow.
the nicest truck on earth. Gives me a
Wow.
brand new truck and plans a birthday party for me, and 200 people showed up, and she told them all to put money in a box for me to go on a holiday somewhere. And so everybody threw some money in, and I said, she's like, go anywhere you want, take a break, go by yourself. And so I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go see what conference is. I'm just gonna get full of Holy Ghost. And I saw Bethel had a Randy Clark conference, and
Yeah.
so I thought that's where I'm going. So I came here, and because I
amazing.
had that connection with you, and because I know Deborah, I thought, see if I
You
can
made-
get
you
Kris
made it
to do
all
a
happen.
podcast with me, and she was able to
Make it happen.
make it happen. So
That's
thanks for
a
saying
beautiful
yes.
Story.
Yeah. So yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but I've known Deborah since I was a teenager.
You told me that when I was in Canada.
Yeah.
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 And
We were part of the same friend group. I think she was a couple years older than us, but she was kind of like mother hen in our little group. And she just took care of us, and she mentored us and poured into us. And my mom we actually went on a month-long mission trip to Brazil together.
Wow.
3 days before that trip, my mom died of cancer.
Wow.
Deborah was by my side, holding my hands, wiping my tears
Wow.
while my mom was dying in front of me.
Wow.
So I have a lot of sentimental feelings towards.
She was a model too, right?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah. Beautiful. She's still beautiful.
And then after a month in Brazil, she was like, by the sounds of it, within a year, she was here with you.
Yeah. I think she's been here for like 25 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was telling me
And
that.
speaking of business, her and I built Bethel. It was called Sound Wisdom at the time. We
Yeah.
built Bethel Media Business, and that business grew to $11 million a year for many years. Of course,
From nothing.
From nothing. Oh,
Yeah.
no, from nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing
When she came.
when she came, and
The two of
and
you
she,
built that.
She was the main manager. We built it together, but she managed all the people, and it was mostly her ideas. And yeah, and obviously those media businesses are over now. You got YouTube and all these places that you get, like what we're doing right here for free.
Yeah.
But we used to, charge for cassette tapes, and
Oh, yeah.
that became a multi-million-dollar business. Sent them all over the world, and she grew that. She's amazing.
That's something, eh? Yeah. So Deborah, she's awesome. So she got me in here with you. I want to do the deep dive. I want to hear the long version of your story. I don't get a lot of people who get both worlds of ministry and and business, but you didn't start. In a, it's not like you were born into a family of millionaires who taught you that way. You started very poor. Can you take me back, kind of give me a picture of your
I'll
childhood?
give you the Reader's Digest version of my childhood. My father drowned when I was 3,
Wow.
and my father was a teacher. He drowned when I was 3 years old. My mother got pregnant with me out of wedlock. My mom and dad got married immediately, and then 3 years later, my father drowned. And my mom had another child. So
Just out swimming?
Yeah, actually, the crazy story is that my father, 6 months before he died, every night my mom said he'd wake up and say, "I'm going to die, I'm going to die." So he was out fishing. My father was an avid fisherman with 2 of my cousins and two of my uncles. And there was a storm came up. The boat turned over. He swam one of my uncles to shore because he couldn't swim. The other one swam ashore. And he went back out after the boat and never came back. We found him on the bottom of the lake the next night.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I for 2 years, I didn't, as a child from 3 to 5, I didn't speak at all. Then my mother remarried when I was 5, and he was with us 1 week when he beat me until blood ran down my legs. And
Wow.
we did that for 8 years.
And then he was gone?
Then she divorced him.
So now you're 13?
And then I'm 13, and from 13 to 15, we're alone. And my mother is my mother passed 3 years ago, but my mother's a stunningly beautiful woman. Like when I was in high school, I bring my friends over and they go, "How come you didn't tell me you had a beautiful sister?" I said, "Man, that's my mom."
Seriously?
Yeah. And so when I was 15, my mother remarried, but before my mother remarried, we started having a prowler, like a robber, come to our house. And we lived in this old house, no air conditioning. Summertime, we had windows open, and we had a prowler at our house probably 6 days out of 7 for a year. And
6 days out of 7?
Oh, yeah. He would knock on windows, and we'd rush to the window. Twice he got in our house. So my mother was sleeping with a rifle on the couch and covered in psoriasis, covered. My beautiful model mom covered in psoriasis,
Wow.
crying on the couch. We weren't raised as Christians. So, and I'm sleeping with a rifle because he'd gotten in our house. So
15 years old.
15. So this night I'm going to tell you about, we're like month probably 11 of this going on. Police are out nearly every night. He gets in my window, comes in my bedroom window. And I wake up and I yell, and he jumps out the window, and I run to the window and I take a shot at him with my rifle. Thankfully, I didn't hit him. So the next night, of course, I can't sleep. My mom's crying on the couch. She's covered in psoriasis. And I say out loud, "If there's a God, if you heal my mother, I'll find out who you are and I'll serve you the rest of my life." And an audible voice said, "My name is Jesus Christ. You have what you requested."
Wow.
I get up the next morning, my mother's psoriasis is completely gone.
Wow.
A week later, they catch the prowler. The voice comes back 7, 8, 9, 10 days after the first voice. And he said, "My name is Jesus Christ. You said if I healed your mother, you'd serve me, and I'm waiting."
10 days later, you hadn't moved yet.
So I spent the next 3 years looking for God. And
Wow.
I couldn't read. When I graduated from high school, I read on the 3rd grade level. So I started with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I met my wife when she was 12. I got engaged to her when she was 13. I was 16. So we started on this journey together, and we started going to church after church. And I would say the God who spoke to me isn't here. And we'd sometimes go to 2 churches on a Sunday. And I raised my hand 3 times to receive Christ.
Did your wife believe, did she think you were a little
No, she
out
was
there?
like,
She's convinced you hear God and we're going to find him?
Yeah, she very much knew that I heard God. I mean, that voice changed my life. And my mother got instantly healed.
Yeah,
remember?
right.
So we go for 3 years. I raised my hand 3 times to receive Christ. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. I probably would have stopped, except for I had a power encounter.
Mm-hmm.
We end up in this. I'm now I'm 18, and I'm in charge of a repair shop. I'm the manager of a shop.
Are you married or still just engaged?
I'm still engaged. We got married when I was 20.
Okay.
So we this one guy who works for me, one of my mechanics, he's like, you got to come to my home group. And I'm like, yeah. And he's a Jesus person. I don't know what that is at the time. He's got long hair. He's a former drug addict. And he's like, you got to come. And finally, like, okay. So he's like, it's on Wednesday night. And so you know how you tell someone you're going to do something, but you have no intention of doing it.
Yeah.
So finally he's like, hey, next week, you told me you're coming. So I get my girlfriend. We go to this place. It's called Hallelujah Singers. It's in a house. There's 120, 130 kids there in a track house. And
What's
he's
a
like,
track house?
it's just a regular house in a neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And he's like, you got to get there a half an hour early or you don't get a seat and you have to sit outside on the lawn. So we get there. And we get there early enough to sit in the front room floor. And kids just pile in, all these hippie kids. And I wasn't a hippie. Had never taken drugs, neither had my girlfriend. So we get there and they start worship, right? And there's kids on the lawn. It's a 2-story house. There's kids up the stairs, in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
The place is packed with all these hippie kids. And they start singing, hallelujah, hallelujah. And as they're singing, kids are getting up, standing up during worship, saying, Jesus delivered me from heroin. Jesus healed my epilepsy.
Like at that moment.
Yeah, that, like in 5-second testimonies. Jesus healed me from cancer. And I'm like, remember now, I had a power encounter, and I've 3 years been going to churches, raising my hand. Nothing's happening. And I'm like, and I turned to Kathy and I said, God, who spoke to me is here. So when the worship was over, this young man, I was 18, he's probably 24, so probably 6 years older than me, leading guitar. His name was Ken. He said, does anyone want to receive Christ? And of course, I raised my hand for the 4th time. Kathy raised her hand. When the meeting was over, he comes over, sits on the floor with us, and he explains the gospel in super simple terms. And he's like, you received Jesus and you became a child of God and you were born again. And he explains the gospel in really simple terms and tells us both that we're children and that we need a father. And I'm thinking, I've needed a father my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So he brings 2 young men over. They sit on the floor with us and he goes, which one of these men do you want to be your father?
No way. This is day one.
Day one. And I just took the better looking guy. His name was Art Kipperman. And he was an engineer, probably 3 years older than me. So he's 21, 22 years old. And he became my spiritual father.
Yeah.
He became our spiritual father. That man changed my life. He was the most boring person you'd ever want, and which is what I needed, right? And we met every Friday for 3 years.
Wow. Discipleship right off the bat.
Taught me, and he was not, he was, like I said, he was a very boring person. And he taught me every day you read your Bible, every day you spend time with God, pray, every day you share your faith, and every day you worship. So every Friday I'd meet with him, and he'd be like, did you read your Bible every day? And I'd have to give an account. And then he got
and
married.
He would call you to share your faith daily.
Every day. Share your faith. You didn't have to lead someone to Christ, but you just share your faith.
You had to be sharing your faith.
Yeah.
And he would want to know, okay, who did you share your faith with?
Every day, every week, we'd give an account. Kathy and I give an account.
Wow.
And if you didn't read your Bible, or didn't read it every day, you had to say, oh, I read it twice this week. And he'd be like, no. He was an engineer. So he'd be like, no, you read your Bible every day. So I'm going to read King James Bible, bro. So that's how I got saved. And that man changed my life. Kathy and I never looked back after that day.
Wow.
And we were with the Jesus people. By the way, I didn't know they were Jesus people until 10 years later.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And someone said, hey, my leader was such and such, and I got saved in the Jesus movement, and one of his proteges was this guy named Ken Hughes. And I'm like, Ken Hughes? He's like, yeah. I said, Ken Hughes, the Jesus person? He said, yeah. I said, that was the guy who led me to the Lord.
They didn't even call themselves that.
No, I didn't even know that I was part of a Jesus people movement. So that was my.
Was that normal through the movement that you would be discipled that well right off the bat? That was a thing they all did everywhere?
No, it was the thing that they did in the Jesus movement, and I was part of the shepherding movement, which I didn't know I was part of the shepherding movement until 10 years later.
That was the spiritual fathering thing.
Yes, and it got really dysfunctional, but I was involved in the early days, and the reason why it got dysfunctional is because the people who got saved, like me, like everybody in that group was a former drug addict. Kathy and I were the only 2 that weren't. So these people were street people. Most of them got saved in the streets. Yeah. Most of them were like heroin addicts and, drug addicts. And so, they needed a lot of control in their life.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a movement that if you were going to buy a house or buy a car, you would go to your spiritual father or your spiritual mother and you would consult with them. You were expected to.
Right.
Well, these were all broken people who needed that level.
They loved that.
Yeah, but what happened was as that movement got larger, And those hippie people started getting normal people saved who had normal lives, right?
Yeah.
They were saved out of normal lives, not saved out of like
Total
homeless
brokenness.
people, drug addicts. The control thing was unnecessary, and it became part of the movement.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole movement crumbled, like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years later. But it was so beautiful for me. I didn't need it for the drug thing. I need it because I was, my family was so dysfunctional, and having people in my life that insisted on me being accountable, creating rhythm in my life. I had no rhythm in my life whatsoever.
Well, before you came in here, I was actually just talking to a couple guys in the hall here, and we were actually talking about sonship and how, the last verses, the last 2 sentences of the Old Testament prophesy that in the last days, there's going to be a spirit that comes on the earth that is going to turn the hearts of fathers to sons, sons to fathers. God could have called it the spirit of Abraham, because he had a lot of sons, but he chose to call it the spirit of Elijah, which was a guy who never had any sons except a spiritual son.
Yeah.
So it has to do with spiritual fathering. So in the last days, people are going to have spiritual fathers and sons. We're going to get this thing figured out.
What's interesting about I call that the Malachi mandate. And what's interesting about Elijah, he goes into the cave running from Jezebel. You remember this story?
Yeah.
I think it's 1 Kings 19. He goes in the cave running from Elijah, tells God he's the only one left, right? And at the time, the prophets were called the company of prophets.
Yeah.
God encounters him in the cave and gives him 3 things to do. Go anoint this king, go prophesy this person, and go anoint Elisha in your place. He comes back, he anoints Elisha in his place. He's suicidal, right? He keeps telling God, kill him. He becomes a father to Elisha. The company of prophets are not ever called that again. From that day on, they're called the sons of the prophets.
Really?
When Elijah goes up in a whirlwind, Elisha says, my father, the horses and chariots of Israel. And the movement goes from a business, a company of prophets, to a family, the sons of the prophets. And Elijah Elijah goes up in the whirlwind, right? So he doesn't die. And he comes down in the new covenant as a father.
Wow.
Is that crazy?
That is. And I love, fast forward a little bit, Elisha, when he finds himself in trouble later on, totally surrounded. And his servant is going, man, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
He prays, his eyes are open, and he sees the horses and chariots of fire. It's like, wait a sec, there's only one other place in the whole Bible that talks about horses and chariots of fire, and that was his spiritual father going up. I can only assume that he would have seen that and then, well, Dad's helping me out, and he brought a half of heaven with him.
Yeah. Is that powerful?
So has spiritual fathering been a big part of your story?
My whole story,
life?
my whole life. And,
and you've had a few spiritual fathers?
3.
Yeah.
Art was my spiritual father for 3 years. Then we moved, and I had a nervous breakdown. We were living in the Bay Area. I had a nervous breakdown. So we moved to this little town called Lewiston, actually, 900 people, so I could get better. And I never missed a day of work, but I was so tormented. Instead, I've got worse. So I'm a year in this little town called Lewiston. Now I'm 23 years old, and I'm working as a mechanic. I'm working in this shop, and I'm laying underneath this car. This is like 1 year after we moved, and I said, God, I need a spiritual father. God, because once you've had one, you know what you're missing. And I'm laying underneath this Jeep, and the Lord said to me, the man who owns this Jeep will be your father. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know who brought Jeep in.
How often would you hear God talk like that?
Well, I grew up by hearing the audible voice of God, right?
So after you were 15, it was more normal.
Not hearing the audible voice of God. I've only heard the audible voice of God twice in my life, where I heard it with my ears.
But after 15, hearing God was not unusual to you.
No, it's the most
you would
normal.
know that, like, the guy who owns this Jeep. You're like, ooh, now you can't wait to meet him. You just know that was God.
Yeah. So he comes to pick up his Jeep at the end of the day. I go over the work order with him, right? And I'm like, it's like your first date. I'm like, I'm super nervous, right? He's a man 20 years older than me. And I'm like, I walk him out to the Jeep, and he's like, boy, he must be thinking this is the best service I've ever got, And I walk him out the Jeep, and he gets in the Jeep, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's gonna leave. I'm never gonna see him again. Which is like not gonna, like, we're in a little town of 3,000 people, right, in Weirville. And so he starts the Jeep, and I knock on the window, and he rolls the window down, and I said, hey, I was underneath your Jeep today, and God told me that the man who owned this Jeep would be my father. Are you a Christian?
Oh, you didn't even know if he was a Christian.
No. So he turns the Jeep off, opens the door, and said, I am a Christian. I would be honored to be your father.
Whoa.
And I buried that man 4 years ago.
Wow.
He became my spiritual father. He met with me every Friday for 20 years.
Wow. So spiritual fathering to you is not just a nice title in your life. It's an every Friday thing. It's
the only way.
Weekly commitment to have input.
Yeah, and his name was Bill Derryberry. Very interesting because I was young, young dad, young husband, and my wife had permission to talk to him if I wasn't doing well at home.
Yeah.
So some Fridays I'd get to we'd be sitting at the restaurant. We always had lunch at the same restaurant, and he'd say, "So how's it going at home?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's going good." He goes, "So how's it going at home?"
Because he already talked to her. Yeah.
And I'm like, "Kathy called you?" And he's like, I remember this one time.
That's awesome.
The first 6 months that he was my spiritual father, I was living in Lewiston, which is a little town, close to Weirville, but 15 minutes away. And whenever I would get, bored or depressed, I would go buy something. So, and I didn't have any money. So I told to Kathy, I'm going to go buy a Jeep. And so I drove to Reading, which is an hour away, and I'm on the lot. We got one kid, and Kathy's pregnant with our next baby, and I'm on the Jeep lot, and I'm looking at Jeeps, and all of a sudden, over the loudspeaker, it says, "Kris Vallotton, come to the office." My last name pronounced perfectly, and I'm like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. My wife's the only person I know that knows I'm here. I run the phone. I pick up the phone. It's Bill Derryberry.
No way.
And he
She
goes,
ratted you out.
"What are you doing?" Doesn't say hi. "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm and then before I could even say what I was doing, he goes, "Get your ass home." And hangs the phone up.
Did he really?
Yes.
She ratted you out, and
I got in my car and drove home.
That's hilarious.
That's the kind of fathering I needed. We're not talking about like the shepherding movement being kind of controlling. I grew up in a movement that I needed.
Yeah.
Get home.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I've had a spiritual mother and father since 99, 26 years. And my wife has ratted me out to my spiritual mom 100 times. And like you, I was a bit of an orphan. My dad died when I was a baby. My mom died when I was 19. So spiritual parents are the only parents I've known.
Yeah.
And my wife has many times called Katie.
Yeah.
And then I get a call from Katie. "How you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, great. She called you." Well,
yeah, exactly.
like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. There's no sense like lying because those guys know you, and it was.
I feel like I'm going down a trail and I'm going to run out of time and regret it, but I might have to get you again. But I have to ask one more question on this line because I literally, before you got here, we were having this conversation with some guys in the hall about sonship, and one of the guys said, "I want that. But how do you even find a spiritual father? I got to throw that at you. What do you say to someone who wants a spiritual father, who wants input, but doesn't know where to go or where to look?
Well, I think part of it is this, first of all, I think it's like, kind of got a date before you're married kind of thing, and I think.
Gotta be some chemistry.
Yeah, I think some chemistry, and I don't think it has to be weird. And I also think you can't be a freaking bastard, you can't be,
right.
You can't be an orphan, you got to be a son. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who quote, "I want a spiritual dad," they're like orphans. Like they're not teachable. They don't trust authority. And
Wow.
I'm like,
you got to be a son before you can attract a father.
Exactly.
So, spirit of sonship is what pulls them.
Yeah, and I think that and I believe in relationships that have reciprocity, right? It's like it benefits like my relationship with my mentors benefits me,
Oh yeah, of course.
but it benefits them too.
Of course.
I want to make sure. When I first got saved, I obviously didn't think like this, but
Yeah.
as I
You were
got
needy.
older, I'm like, my relationship with Bill Derryberry needs to benefit him too.
Of course.
And I think that when you're an orphan, you're like, it's all about you,
Yeah.
and it's all about you're going to help me, and it's like it's not. And then the other thing is, this happens to me a lot. Like people ask for advice and then they don't take it, and I'm like, okay.
And then they want to meet with you again.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, and it's okay if you're not very busy, but most people that are faithful, the reward for being faithful is more responsibility, according to the parable of the talents and
Yeah.
minas. So you do that for a while, and you have more responsibility. So
You're busy.
I love people, but I don't want to give you 2 hours a week when you do nothing with it. When I could go influence 100 people with that 2 hours and make a difference, right? So
Yeah.
I think you have to be hungry, and I think you have to be humble, and I think you have to be teachable. And when you're teaching someone who's actually taking it and applying it, it makes you feel like a superstar, that
Mhm.
your life matters to someone that's actually growing what you're giving them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of people that just, and I think they want attention more than they want leadership.
And I think it's interesting. You didn't go looking for a superhero. You weren't
No.
looking for the most popular preacher on earth to be your spiritual father. You didn't even know the guy was saved,
No.
but you found somebody, and then you opened your life up to them, and then he got to be a voice into your life.
And both my first two spiritual fathers were not dynamic men.
Right.
They were both noble men. They both loved
Wow.
God.
That says a lot.
They both were honest, noble men, but they were both very boring.
Wow.
And that's exactly what I needed. I didn't need a superstar.
Wow.
I needed someone who could love me, could tell me the truth, could hold me accountable, and that could model nobility. And they were both incredibly great character, both of them. And it challenged me, who grew up like a freaking orphan, right?
Yeah.
On the street.
Yeah.
You had some of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, survival.
Yeah.
When survival molds you, you're not exactly the most noble person who ever lived.
Yeah.
Didn't trust anybody.
No.
Know how to survive. Fighter. Like, that stuff doesn't work in the kingdom.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I think if more people were even just looking for that, they wouldn't find it so hard to find a spiritual father. But when everyone wants to be Billy Graham's spiritual son,
Yeah.
it's really hard to find a spiritual father.
Yeah, and honestly, those don't become the best spiritual fathers, and I'll tell you why. Like a Bill Johnson, a Kris Vallotton now, right? It's like,
Right.
I have so much responsibility. People ask all the time, every single week, like, would you be my spiritual dad? It's like, you'd be like an orphan.
Yeah.
Like, I oversee a whole entire movement. You need somebody that can be in your life, that can invest in you, can give you time, can listen to your stories, and could speak into your life.
Yeah.
Bro, that isn't me. It may be 10 years from now, but it's not me. So you're really at a huge disadvantage when you're being mentored by someone who's inundated with responsibility. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. I heard one preacher say, I love this. He said, the person who's going to change your life isn't the person you believe in. It's the person who believes in you.
That's powerful. It's so true.
Let's talk about business. How did you go from being this orphan who didn't trust Jesus movement? And I love one of your books, you talk about how the Jesus movement didn't really inspire vision in people. They were all waiting for Jesus to come back any day. So they didn't really have any forethought. I can't remember exactly how you said it, but they just didn't have any vision for the future. So how did you break out of this poverty mentality and get the courage to go into business? Talk about early days of
Well,
business.
so my grandfather was the person who loved me first in my life. You know, I've just said my dad was drowned. My grandfather wasn't a Christian, but he took an interest in me.
Okay.
And he owned the first service station in the Bay Area. And so, you typically want to be like the person who gives you time or values you. So I'm like, so from the time I was probably 10 years old, I'm like, I want to be a great mechanic.
Like Grandpa.
And I want to own a shop. And then, so I worked in shops. I became a really, really good technician because, now we moved from mechanics to technicians because we got computer cars and all that. I became a really good technician. And then I met Bill Johnson when I was 25 years old.
This is before you owned your first business?
Yes.
Oh.
I met Bill Johnson. And Bill Johnson, I listened to Bill Johnson preach, and the very first time, and I was just sitting in the back row, and I wept through the whole service. The church was 40 people.
He was not a superstar.
Oh, nobody knew. This is in Weaverville. Became our pastor.
There was 40 people in that church.
40 people, and it grew to 300 in 2 years.
Wow!
And when I heard Bill Johnson preach, I said, "That's what I'm supposed to do." My life. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I want to be in the ministry. And then about a year into meeting Bill, we had a prophet come. His name was Dick Mills. We took him to lunch, the leaders.
And did they call them prophets in those days?
Not from the podium, but always.
You all knew he was a prophet.
Well, Bill would say he's the prophet, but he wouldn't call himself that.
Right.
So we're sitting at lunch. I'm sitting next to him. He looks at me and he goes, I have a word for you. I said, okay. He said, God's given you double wisdom, the wisdom of man and the wisdom of God for business. And I left there, and that was Sunday. On Monday morning, I was in Bill's office at 7 o'clock in the morning crying, saying, I don't want to be in business. And he said, well, you just trust God, whatever. So
that's amazing. See, I didn't realize that part. I thought you were the guy who loved business, who then got drug into ministry. But no. you wanted ministry first.
Yes. And then about 3 days later, an African-American young man came to my house. I knew him. His name was Danny. Prophet. He's a prophet too. And we're eating dinner. My kids are little. And he stops and he has this open vision. And he turns to me while we're at dinner. We're all laughing and joking, having fun. He stops and he goes, God just told me if you open a business, he'll bless you. I said, well, you tell God, I don't want to be in business. And he said, this is exact words. He said, I'm just telling you what he said. I said, well, tell him what I said. So 2 more days pass. My friend, Charlie Harpers, picks me up for work. My car's broke down in the shop. I got it all tore apart. Picks me up for work. He's taking me to my shop for work in the morning. And we passed by a 76 station in town. And he goes, hey, last night I had a dream that you own that station. I said, bro, I don't want to be in business. And he goes, I'm just telling you I had a dream that you own the station. That's Friday morning. Friday afternoon, the guy that owns that station, who I've never met, don't know, and isn't a Christian, calls me at work. And he goes, hey, my name's Robert. I'm going to sell my station. I feel like you're supposed to buy it. And I'm like, unbelievable. So he says, let's meet on Saturday. So I meet him on Saturday. He wants $9,000 down. I have no money. And so I'm really happy I have no money because I don't want to be in business. I get home. Kathy's excited. Like, what do you say? I told her. She's like, you should call your grandmother and ask her for the money. I said, oh, I'm not going to do that. My grandmother's not a very generous person. So anyway, 3 or 4 days, she's like encouraging me. I call my grandmother, who's not a Christian, and I tell her, hey, I want to buy a service station. It's $9,000 down. And she said, okay, I'll call you tomorrow. So she calls the next day and she goes, hey, I can't give you the money. I can't lend you the money because I asked her to lend me the money. She said, but I'll give it to you. Wow. Just don't tell the rest of the kids. So we get the $9,000
as a gift.
As soon as my boss that I'm working for in this tire store finds out that I'm going to open a business, he fires me.
Because you're going to be his competition.
Fires me that day.
Wow.
And so I call the owner of the service station, and I said, hey, I got fired today. And he's like, well, why don't you just come and run my business? Just run it, and we'll have a 30-day escrow.
This is the one you're buying.
Yes. So I run it in his name. I used $1,400 of the $9,000 my grandmother gave me. So the escrow is 30 days. So we get the 27th day, and the guy's like, hey, you need to put your money in escrow. Hey, you need to put your money in escrow. Well, I'm $1,400 short. I didn't have it all. I didn't want to tell him. So he comes by that morning of the escrow, the day the escrow was supposed to close, and he goes, hey, you need to put your money in escrow. You know, it needs to be here by noon. I'm like, yeah, it'll be fine. So I'm in the back, and I'm laying on the floor, and I'm like, God, this is your idea. Did not want to be in business. You drug me in this business. Now I'm $1,400 short, and I'm weeping, and I'm like, this is not going to work. And an hour later, I'm working on a car. I'm underneath this car, and a guy pulls up on the pump island for gas. My guys are taking care of him, and the guy comes over, and he hands me in what looks like an envelope, and I take it out of my pocket. He goes, I put it in my pocket, and he goes, you need to look at it. I pulled out his 14 $100 bills.
Just cause?
We didn't tell anybody.
He didn't even know.
No.
The Lord spoke to him?
No. He was the manager of a store down the street. A man came in his store and said, I had a dream last night I had a dream last week that I'm supposed to give that man, that Kris guy, didn't even know my last name. I'm supposed to give him $1,400, so I mortgaged my house to get the money, which I didn't know that the rest of that story for a year.
Whoa. So it wasn't easy for him. He wasn't some rich guy.
No. It was a guy.
Heard God.
It turned out to be a guy I helped the year before when I worked in the tire store. His car broke down. He had went through a nervous breakdown. I fixed his car. He didn't have any money. I fixed his car for free.
You have to have this at noon, and you have it at
about 10 o'clock.
Dear God.
I walk in, got $1,400.
So there's no question God is calling you to the marketplace.
And then it was horrible. I didn't make any money. We were in that service station for 9 years. Year 5, my house goes into foreclosure.
Oh.
My cars get repossessed. My 2 cars get repossessed a month later. And I have no money. People are bringing me groceries. I'm laying on the floor. I called the police department, the sheriff's department, when my cars drive out of the driveway at 3 o'clock in the morning. I call and I go, my cars just got stolen. They go, no, your cars got repossessed, Kris. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm on the floor that morning, and I'm crying, and I'm like, you said if I go into business, you'd bless me. And the Lord said, that's right. You're building a business. I'm building a man. You and I aren't on the same page. He said to me. And then he said, 10 years from now, this will all make sense. He said, you just need to trust me.
Wow.
Well, that encounter changed. I'm like, oh, okay. I thought I was here to grow a big business and make a lot of money. And you're like, no, you're here to be molded into a great leader. And that shifted. And then, of course, we were in business for 20 years. We ended up owning 9 businesses. But
people don't realize what it takes to make a great man. They don't realize how necessary brokenness is, and pain and loss.
And if the Lord told you about it, you wouldn't go in business,
never
right?
do it. You'd never do it.
Exactly.
If you knew what he was really going to do to pull you through that knothole, you just never do it.
It was slavery.
Wow.
It's crazy.
So 9 years. Tell the story. This is a fun one. I enjoyed. Heard you tell. I've listened to your podcast, or your book. I've read your book on wealth, and I've listened to the audio version a few times. But I love this story about your staff and how you couldn't motivate them, and how the Lord spoke to you. And I think this is a great one for business leaders who are listening to this, because I want people to recognize that when we need to hear God's voice to prosper in business. He will speak to us, but we actually have to do what he says.
Exactly. You know, so we ended up opening an auto parts store because I had 3 repair shops. I was the largest customers for the 2 parts stores in town.
Okay.
And they didn't deliver to us. So we had my mechanics would stand in line for 2 hours a day waiting in line for parts, and because that's just the way it was. So I ended up. This is a longer story, but so the Lord's like, I want you to open an auto parts store. Well, the short story is we opened an auto parts store. So I opened an auto parts store. I have 3 repair shops. I got an auto parts store, and I'm telling my guys like, hey, so now there's 4 auto parts stores in town. One kind of do-it-yourself store, and then us, and then two other stores. So, and we're in a small town, so it's not like there's a abundance of business.
Mm-hmm.
So our store is called Crossroad Auto Parts. Crossroad Auto Parts service, excellent service is the crossroad difference was our motto.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, so when a shop calls, I need you guys to run to the phone, because the phone rings, ring. Yeah. And then, the shops make their money on how many cars they can get in and out of bay. Cause we have 3 shops, so we get it. So one day, I have 4 counter guys, and the phones ring, and I end up running to the counter myself and picking it up. And the guys are talking in the back, and I'm like, this sucks, So I get my guys together and I say, guys, when that phone rings, I want you to run to the phone. And in unison, they say, you don't pay us enough to run to the phone.
They say that out loud.
The 4 of them. And I'm pissed. And I'm like, and I'm like, well, how much do you have to pay you guys to run to the phone, right? Because I'm paying better than any of the other stores in town. So anyway, so I'm frustrated with them, and then I can't get them to, and it's, so one day, so I'm driving home one day, and I'm like, this is 3 days after that conversation, and I'm like, Lord,
how?
Teach me how to motivate men.
Yeah.
How do I motivate these men? And I gave them raises. This has been going on for a year. I'm giving them raises, didn't make any difference. And
I've been there too, where you think, I just got to give this guy a good raise, and then he'll give me more. And you give them the raise, and they're really thankful, and you don't get more. Sometimes you get less.
No, it didn't motivate them at all, bro.
Yeah.
Not at all. So I'm like, all right. So I'm driving home, and this is now I've had another hard conversation with, answer the freaking phone. You know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm driving home, and I look over, and I have to drive by the park every day is on my way home. And I look, and all of my guys, my 4 guys, I think I'm at 5 now. My 5 guys are all parked at the park. And so I stop, and I'm like, what are they doing here? Because right after work.
Mm-hmm.
And I look, and they're playing softball.
Yeah.
And the Lord says to me, stop here. I'm going to teach you something. I said, okay. So I stop, and he said, watch them play. So from my car, I'm watching them, right, for 40 minutes. And then he says this to me, if you can figure out why they run around the bases for free, you will learn how to motivate men.
Yeah. So
every night, they practice all week long. Every day after work, I drive and I watch. And I hear, if you can figure out why those men run around the bases for free, you'll know how to motivate men. So I sat there for 4 days. And I'm like, okay, they won't run to the counter for money, but they run around the bases for free. What is the answer?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, significance.
Yeah.
They were born to win. So I go back the next morning. Well, I go home to Kathy, and I tell her this whole story. She knows, I tell her, I'm going to be late. I'm watching my guys run around the bases. She's like, why? I said, well, the Lord told me if I can figure out why they run around the bases for free, I'm going to solve my problem. So that night I go home and I say, here's what we're going to do. We are going to take, I pay them 2%. We give them 2% of everything they sell.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So,
so there is a commission.
There's a commission. They have a salary plus commission, right? Well, that didn't motivate them. I gave them 2% to solve the problem. It didn't make any difference. So I take the chart of each man, my 5 guys.
Mm-hmm.
I put it on the wall right behind them. How much they sold for the day, how much they sold for the month.
So everyone would know what their commission's going to be.
And everybody knows what theirs is, and everybody knows what everybody else's is.
Yeah.
And then I give them a $200 bonus for whoever sells the most,
Nice.
right? So that there's a price.
Yeah.
It's not very much money. It's only $200, right? They're making much more than that on their 2%.
Yeah.
And so I put it up on the wall first morning. They walk in, they look at the wall, and they're like, "What the F?" You know. So they go, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, that's nothing. It's just your chart. Put it on the wall so you guys can see it." So, the low guy on the totem pole walks in my office at noon. He's like, "Oh, it's nobody's business how much I sell." I said, "Oh yeah, it's everybody's business."
Yeah, because it's on the wall.
So they're like, "Oh, da da da. I don't care." Well, we get like 4 days into the month or 5 days into the month. Now the chart's been on the wall, and pretty soon they're making fun of each other for this guy's a low guy, this guy's a high guy.
Yeah.
By day 10, they are running to the phone.
Really?
Running to the phone. And they pick up the phone, and I have a phone system that doesn't, when you pick it up, it doesn't cut off the next guy who picks it up. So I got 3 guys all trying to help
The
a
same
customer on
person.
the phone, and I have to buy a new phone system the first month. So that when you pick up the phone, only one guy can answer, right?
Yeah.
And our sales go up by 25, 30% the
Instantly.
first month.
Wow.
And the shops are like,
And it wasn't the
Oh.
money. It was what was on the wall.
it was arguing over who wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who wins?
That's awesome.
It was crazy. It's like a simple thing.
Yeah, when wasn't there one of the guys? Didn't he just quit because he just gave up
Yeah, yeah.
right off the bat
Yeah,
because he's
right.
like, forget
He
it.
was
I know
like,
I can't win.
4 or 5 days in,
And
he
those
goes,
are the
"I
guys you
quit."
wanna get rid of
They're all
anyway.
harassing him like,
Yeah.
"You're a loser,"
Yeah.
So it's crazy. And then I used that principle and developed it in a whole bunch of different areas.
Yeah.
And I just realized like guys need to feel like they're winning.
Yeah.
They love competition.
Yeah.
They were built. You're more than a conqueror. You were built for competition. You were
Yeah.
built for battle.
Yeah.
And you get guys in a battle where it got to be fun, and we broke it up into 2 teams, and then there was a bonus for personal bonus, and there's a bonus for the team. All that stuff got to be fun.
One thing you say too, and I'm just kind of on the same topic, is you talk about reward is spiritual.
Yeah.
And the kingdom of God is rooted in a culture of reward. And we see that in the scriptures.
Hebrews 11.
Yeah, he's a rewarder of those who seek him. People.
Heaven.
Yeah, heaven. Heaven is a reward. And it's, we've kind of, how you said at one time was just people have taken poverty and they've made it into this like wonderful mountain that we want to climb. And it's just destroys so many lives.
Yeah, and if you don't like wealth, you're not going to like heaven.
Yeah.
Because heaven is gold streets and pearl gates. Like God motivates us with reward.
Yeah.
God's like, okay, you're gonna do this life for 100 years, and you're gonna give up some things
Yeah.
today to get something in eternity, and that eternal reward is symbolized by gold streets and pearl gates.
Yeah.
So God uses reward to actually motivate us for righteousness in heaven.
And he seems to be okay with us enjoying rewards on earth. I love this story. I'll get you to tell this one about how you had to wrestle with your own poverty mentality around the Corvette, because when the Lord has blessed you, now we're into ministry time, and I'd love to tell the story about you having to walk with Bill. That's one of my favorite stories. But the Corvette, you believe in prosperity. You believe that we can be wealthy. You believe that God wants to bless us. But when you finally got your dream car, you were ashamed of it.
Yeah, I was, so for our 40th anniversary, we've been married 50 years this year. But on our 40th anniversary, Kathy, I said to Kathy, what do you want to do for our 40th anniversary? And she's like, you really want to know? I said, yeah. She goes, I want to go to Disneyland where we went on our honeymoon. I said, great. So we went to Disneyland, and by now, I've written 13 books. We're very generous, but we're also prospering, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we go to Disneyland, and she said, we're walking around Disneyland. She goes, what would you like for our 40th anniversary? I said, I'd like to have a Corvette. And she, every time I've ever said that, she's like, you'll get tickets and you'll kill yourself. And she's like, I'm going to buy you a Corvette.
Really?
So we got home, and she's like, what color do you want? So she bought me it was used. It only just had like 7,000 miles on it. She bought me a yellow Corvette. And so
What year?
It was it was a 2015.
Nice.
It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It was a yellow Corvette. I picked it out. She bought it. And so I get it home, and I'm all excited, and I got a truck, and I got my Corvette, and I don't drive it for 3 months to work. And so one day, one of my guys are like, I heard you got a Corvette. I'm like, oh yeah, I did. And he's like, why don't you drive it? I said, oh, it's kind of embarrassing that I would have such a nice car. And he goes, bro, you grew up loving cars. That isn't a car. That was a mark of God giving you a dream that you had since you were a boy.
Yeah.
Because I had this dream. I used to make models. I probably made 5 Corvette models. It was, you grew up in poverty. It's like, that was like a Lamborghini,
Yeah, the Corvette, yeah.
It was like Lamborghini, right? It was attainable to some humans that I knew, And so he's like, you've got to get over yourself, and you have to drive. So I drove the car the first day to work. The next day I drove it to work.
After 3 months.
Yeah. And all the employees came out, and they're all gathered around there, and they're like, that is beautiful. That's amazing. And I'm like, oh, I feel so bad that I have this beautiful car. And the Lord's like, I gave you this gift.
Yeah.
And it's a sign of my love for you. Not that it's a car, but that it's something you wanted that I get to give you.
Yeah.
And I just have this beautiful, and you know how it is. Oh, I did this other stupid thing. I posted a picture of it on social media.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a pastor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know how that goes.
That didn't go so well.
Yeah.
That was like, you guys stealing from the flock. And, and I was, I took the picture down after a day, but I was like, isn't
that heartbreaking, though, that preachers have to do that? Like, even if, I know my wife and I mean, we have a business. So, I mean,
yeah,
it's a little different. But even still, if we go on a nice holiday or something, I just hate to put a picture online of us laying on a beach at a nice resort. Why? Why is that?
Well, here's the deal, though. When we were poor and people were bringing us food, which I just gave you some examples, right? When we owned a business, we went through several years where, our friends brought us food in the wintertime,
Wow.
And it's like, people are like, if you love God, why isn't he providing for you? So this was like, oh, God put you in business and he didn't provide for you.
Yeah.
Like if you really serve a God who's all powerful and he puts you in business, why doesn't he provide for you?
Mm-hmm.
So, we did that for the first 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we come to Bethel, we leave everything behind, we lose everything, we have nothing, we live in a little apartment. And 3 years later, 4 years later, I write a book. That book becomes a bestseller. We buy this beautiful house. A few years later, somebody comes and gives me cash and pays it off for me. I write 17 books. You make royalties and you sell your books, and it's like, it's hard unless you suck at writing.
Yeah.
To not be prosperous.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to be embarrassed about that. I don't. How
but it was something that God had to root out of you, because that is that poverty mentality that says, if you climb too high, I
grew up poor, right? I told you, and American poor, because we have to be careful, because I do a lot of work in Africa.
Yeah. There's a different kind of
never
poor.
Never missed a meal. Always had a roof over my head.
Yeah.
So American poor in the world I lived in is much different than what we call the poor of the earth, right? But we didn't like wealthy people. Like my parents sat around the table, talked about, this guy, that guy is, they probably sold drugs to get that money. They probably ripped people off, and so I grew up like not liking wealthy people. Then I got saved, as I just explained earlier, right, in the Jesus movement, which was beautiful. I got saved in this beautiful movement. People love one another. I got taught that I'm a royal priesthood, that God is my dad, and I'm seated on a throne in heavenly places. But the weird thing is that the Jesus people movement that I was part of, they spiritualized poverty.
Yeah.
And the core motto over metaphorically the door that I walked into was, it's harder for a rich man to get into the kingdom than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle.
Yeah.
That was tattooed metaphorically on my mind. And we shamed people. Anyone who is a Christian, like sacrifice, martyrdom, like you've come here to die. And so, no one ever read for example, the parable of the talents, right? Where the one guy has 5 and he gets 5 more. The one guy gets 3, he gets 3 more. And the one guy has 1, he hides the freaking talent. He buries it, right? And the master comes, and the guy who got 5, he said, well done, good and faithful servant. I'll put you over 10 things. The guy that had 3 and got 3 more, I'll put you over, the guy that had 1, the master turns to him and goes, you wicked, lazy, unfaithful slave. Yeah. And then he's like, you knew I sowed, I knew I reaped where I didn't sow, you knew where I gathered, I scattered no seed. And then he ends with this, is like, take the talent and give it to the one who has 10. And
the rich gets richer.
Yeah. And then he turns to him and he goes, and throw him into outer darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. I'm like, the guy who had one talent, which was money, right? He does nothing with it, and he gets sent to hell. No one ever quoted that verse.
No,
to me,
nobody ever did that.
I never even saw it. I never saw that verse for 20 years. Like,
no.
Wait a second. You mean the guy that didn't do anything with the money the Lord gave him ended up in hell?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no one addressed that with me.
No.
And no one ever reminded me that God made Solomon rich, that God gave people the power to make wealth, that basically everyone from Abraham on was rich. God made them rich. Isaac sowed in a famine and reaped 100-fold because God was with him. And I'm like, how come no one quoted any of those verses? Nope. And I realize there's a balance, right? We don't want to live for money. But I was raised in beautiful people who spiritualize poverty.
Yeah. Well, and we read all of those scriptures that way for years. Yeah. I remember one time having this outrageously wealthy man, probably worth hundreds of millions. We went for lunch, and he knew I was a minister as well, and he was cueing me about God and church, and he says, I even heard there's one verse in the Bible that says it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom. What the heck is that supposed to mean? And at that time, I still had that old mindset.
You're like, you're not getting in, bro. That's what it means.
What I said was,
give me all your money.
It's not going to be easy. I said, it's not going to be easy for guys like you to get to heaven. And as I was saying it, I could hear the Holy Spirit inside of me saying, bad interpretation.
Yeah, exactly.
And I went home that night and I prayed and I said, what? Like, that's what you said. and I heard the Lord say to me, he says, Steve, the kingdom is on earth. Why do you always make it about heaven and hell?
Yeah.
I do that. I always do that. Whenever I read a verse about the kingdom, I always make it like, how do you get to heaven? Well, the kingdom of God is not that. That's heaven. The kingdom's on earth. It's hard for rich people to live and enter the kingdom. It's not talking about heaven. They get to heaven the same way as anyone else. But there's a realm on earth that many have a hard time entering into, basically because it costs you everything.
Yeah, it costs you everything, and you lack humility.
Yeah. Yeah.
lack humility, and I think, it's not what you own, it's what owns you that matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some people, some people own houses, other houses own people.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that, Bill Johnson said this many times. He goes, how much money is too much money? And it's whatever cools my affection for God. For some people, it might be a job that pays too much.
That's enough to lose their passion for God.
Lose my passion for God. It's like, I make a little bit more money than I need, and I'm off, spending it on gambling or bars or loose women or loose men, whatever. It's like, how much money is too much money? It's like, well, whatever amount cools my relationship with God.
Speaking of that, you tell a story about a watch that you passed the test with, and then go there. That's a fun one. I love the conviction in that one.
Yeah, when we first came to Bethel, we had lost our business because we sold it to a large company, and they went bankrupt the week before they paid us after 18-month escrow.
So you sold the business.
Sold the business. We
But
sold
before you
all
get
of our
paid-
auto parts stores. Our 3 auto parts stores, we ended up growing to 3 auto parts stores.
Wow.
We sold them to our supplier. They kept delaying the escrow. So we had already agreed to go to Bethel for, as volunteers for
Yeah.
the first year till Bethel could pay us. And we were like, well, we sold our business. We'll make $250,000. It'd be great. We live very frugally. It works. We get to Bethel. We're there about, I think the fourth week we were there. Our businesses are still running. We have managers in all of our stores. One of the managers calls one day and says, hey, I called to get a part from the warehouse, our supplier, and the phone's disconnected. Well, short story, they went bankrupt. All 3,700 stores that they supplied were all calling one another, what's going on? And so, that was on a Monday, and Friday our escrow was closing, and they just went bankrupt and didn't pay us.
And you got nothing.
Not only did we get nothing, we owed $1.8 million. And I had no income. So anyway, wait, it gets worse.
Here I am at this new
I go
church.
see a bankruptcy attorney because obviously, I have no money. I owe 127 suppliers. I don't have a job that pays anything. I owe $1.8 million. And so I go see a bankruptcy attorney, and he's like, yeah, this is what bankruptcy's for. And I'm like, not even my fault. Like, I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And bankruptcy attorney, I start the paperwork, and I leave there, and the Lord says, you can't go bankrupt. You have to trust me. I'm like, what? So I go home and tell Kathy, God says I can't go bankrupt. So the elders of Bethel Church pray for me, and the elder says, trust my faith that God's going to provide for you. And 1 month later, 900,000 of the 1.8 was forgiven.
So it's half.
Yeah, and then about 2 months later, on 300,000, I gave $10,000 on 300,000. Then the Small Business Administration forgave 280,000 of it. 290,000 of it.
That's 3/4 almost.
Yeah, and then the next 3 years we paid the rest off. Wow! But in the middle of that, I don't have a watch because mechanics don't wear watches for lots of reasons, right?
Right.
And so and there's no cell phones, and I do 8 meetings a day, and there's there's no clock, so I'm always late. Like, what time is it? Can you tell me what time it is? So we're at this mall, and I just got done preaching, and I got a little offering, a few $100s, and I said, Kathy, can I buy a watch? She said, yeah. So we went in. She's like, why don't you buy that watch? It was like $120, which was expensive for us. We didn't have any money. I could have bought a Timex for $12. She said, buy that. That looks nice. And so I buy this watch, and that's Friday. And Sunday I'm at church, and I got my arm over the over the chair, and the guy behind me goes, wow, you got a nice watch, which, because, I had 1 pair of shoes, I had, 5 shirts and 2 pairs of pants, it's like, so my $120 watch kind of shows up. And I go, yeah, I just bought it, so, and so during the worship, he's like, let me see it. I'm like, he goes, take it off. So I take it off. And he says, so he takes it. So I take it off, and he has it all through worship, all through the preach. I'm like, I want my watch. I just got it. It's like my most coveted possession. And he finally, at the end of the service, he hands me his watch, and he's like, I'll trade you watches. I've had it 3 days. I don't want to trade watches, but I don't want to sound like a man who loves money. So I'm like, oh, he goes, yeah, I'll trade you watches. So he hands me this watch, and I'm like, okay, I like mine better, but I didn't say anything. And he goes, I'm going to bring you the links to get it to make it bigger so it fits you. Okay. So he brings me the links on Monday. I go take it to the jewelry store, and the jeweler goes, where did you get that watch? I said, a guy gave it to me. He goes, he pulls one out of the case. I think it was like $1,400. He's like, that's a Movado. That's a $1,400 watch, or $1,200, whatever it was. And I said, are you serious? So I have this watch, right? So I wear this watch, and it's
so he knew he was blessing you.
Yeah, he knew he was blessing me, right? Because he could, what I bought was obviously not a brand watch.
Yeah.
So a few months later, we're in YWAM in Fiji, and I have this watch, and of course the watch stands out because my clothes and my watch, they don't fit together, right? Mm-hmm. So the guy, the Dale.
It's funny to hear the early days of Bethel.
Exactly.
Like people they don't see that. Like you guys were little back then.
We're broke.
Yeah.
So I get to Fiji, and every morning I have breakfast with the base leader. His name's Dale, and Dale goes, "Oh, you're supposed to give me that watch," and I'm like, "No, I'm not going to give you that watch." He goes, "Yeah, you're supposed to give it to me." So for 5 days, every morning we have breakfast, and every morning he's like, "You're supposed to give me that watch." So the last day I was there, that morning I get up in the morning, the Lord's like, "You're supposed to give Dale that watch." I said, "No, I'm not give that watch to him." He goes, "If you give him the watch, I'll give you a better one." "You will?" "Yeah." So that morning I take off the watch and I give it to him at breakfast, and he goes, "I couldn't take your watch." I said, "You've been trying to get this watch for a week. You are taking this watch. And besides that, God told me he's going to give me a better one." So I give him the watch, and by the next day I had a nicer watch, a $2,000 watch. So I'm like, I am like in heaven. Like this, I like the way
this is working. Trading up.
9 or 10 months later, I go to Romania. I'm in Romania, and it's like super poor. They just come out of communism. Nobody has anything. We're in this building that it should hold like 40 people, and we have like 120, 130 people in there. We're having this revival meeting, and the leader is there, and we're going to do 3 nights. And after the first night, I go back to the hotel, and the Lord's like, "Give him your watch." I said, "Are you going to give me a better one? Are you going to give me a better one?" He said, "No."
He told you no.
No. So I'm like, so the next day he's like, "Give him your watch." I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And so I said, "Are you going to give me a better one?" So all night long, like, are you going to give me a better one? "No." "Well, I'm not giving my watch then." So I get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and the Lord's like, "I said, give him your watch." And I said, "Are you going to give a better one?" He said, "No." And then I said, "No." He said, "Okay, you can keep it, but now I know what level of wealth I can trust you with." So man, I got rid of that watch. I gave it to the Romanian leader. That's probably like his yearly wage.
Right.
He just broke down sobbing.
Yeah.
And from that day on, people like I've probably been given 400 watches.
Yeah. 400.
Oh yeah, over the years. Since then, maybe 300. I have a watch. Bill Johnson came over to my house. This is probably a 4-month-old story. Someone gave me this watch. They live in Hong Kong. I wore it one time, I think. It's in a case. And Bill came over the other day, 4 months ago, and he's like, "Hey, where'd you get that watch?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. So-and-so gave it to me, like 5 years ago." And he goes, "You know what that watch is worth?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, let's look it up." I looked it up. It's worth $43,700.
$43,000 watch. It's
I
just
have-
one
I
in the
have
drawer with
Rolex
399
watches people give me. I have cases and display cases of watches. God didn't give me a watch.
No.
He gave me watches.
You never get a bad deal when you obey God. Even if he says he's not giving you a good deal, even if he says no,
Yeah.
It's always a yes. I'm trying to find that you, a quote of yours here. Give. Yeah. Just, this is you talking on giving. And you're quoting Luke 6:38, give and it'll be given to you. But I love this quote where you say, all prosperity begins with give. This means everyone in the world has the capacity for wealth. If prosperity began with receive instead of give, then each of us would be powerless to create wealth until someone decided to contribute to our welfare. It would then be rational to blame your poor condition on the actions of others. I love this. Because you initiate all prosperity with giving, you determine when you activate your heavenly endowment to receive God's divine power to produce wealth.
So true.
You can't blame your parents that you're not prospering. You can't blame your town that you're not prospering.
Totally.
Everyone has the opportunity because Jesus said, here's how it works. You're going to give. And that's how this thing starts.
That's how the ecosystem starts. So beautiful.
I have about 30 more stories I want you to tell, but I have people who want you soon, which means I'm going to try to get another podcast with you in the future.
That'd be awesome. I'd love to. It's been awesome being on with you.
Thanks for just the way you've said yes to God, for laying your life down, even business. I know that if you had given yourself fully and completely to focusing on business, you definitely would have more money, but God has called you to be a preacher and to bring the word. And there's just multitudes of people like my friend Doug, multitudes of people who you'll never meet, whose lives have been changed because you chose that path. And we just thank you so much. And it's really an honor to meet you.
Thank you for valuing what the lessons of my life. It's amazing. I'd love to be on a podcast again.
Well, then it's a yes for sure. I'll come back. I wanted to say something else because I know you got something coming up here in a couple of weeks. This is, tell me about it real quick. It is, one, by the way, I would say everyone, I mean, he's got multitude books, but Poverty, Riches, and Wealth, get it. And the audio version's amazing. I've listened to it multiple times. But you are going to be launching a free 4-week experience called the Bethel Business Accelerator, and it's free. Beginning Thursday. Listen, business people listening to this podcast, it's free 4-week experience called the Bethel Business Accelerator. And it starts Thursday, January 29th. So it's just a minute away here. And it's designed to gather and empower business leaders who want to build the kingdom of God through their work.
Exactly right. Thanks for giving a plug for it. Ahab, my business partner, and I, we're partner in crime here. We're building a business network, and the Lord told us, make a place for the kings.
Come on.
He said, my kings, they have nowhere to belong, and so our goal is to do this business accelerator. We have over 2,000 people signed up for it already.
2,000.
Yeah, we were open for 300. 2,000, maybe more. It was 2,000 a week ago.
Wow.
And so we're going to do Ahab, who owns a Chick-fil-A, amazing guy, loves God. He's going to do a couple of sessions. I'm going to do a couple of sessions. We'll be both in this session together. And then our hope is and our goal is to build a business community.
Wow.
An online and on campus business community that's global.
Wow.
So join us. And I think you're going to put the link in the...
I'll put the link right in the Spotify thing, and it'll be on our everywhere you find this podcast. There'll be a link in the description.
Thank you.
And people can check it out. But thanks so much. It's. I think every preacher on earth, every pastor should talk about money. It's a big subject in the Bible. Exactly. But there's some preachers who talk about money, and you go, okay. But you've never created it. And I don't know if you know how money works, but you're quoting Bible verses and it's Jesus, so I'm going to listen. Yeah. We love listening to you because we know that you've done a deep dive in that world. And so thanks for being a voice to the business community as well. And look forward to having you back on.
Thank you. God bless you.
Bless you. Thanks, Kris.
Change the world.
That was it.
I think you and I are having lunch together in the green room, right?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Awesome. What did you think of that?
That was great.
Man, we got derailed by sonship, but that was the Lord. I think there's a lot of guys who are going to watch that. I mean, that